On today's episode, we install the 2-liter ITB engine and go over a lot of the custom fabrication that we've done to this setup.
So we had to head back from the second machine shop to fix some mistakes and oversight.
Yeah, there was same work done twice, you know?
Like your barber, don't cheat on your machine shop. Head is done. I assembled it last night in my basement and it's ready to go on. And then once the head is on, we are throwing the rest of this on and throwing this thing back in its home.
Well, now that it's raining and we have to talk, so we'll just deal with it.
Sorry if you can hear the rain. The next thing we're gonna do is install all these parts from our friends over at Bofi Racing. This is their 3.6 kilogram flywheel, which works out to about 8 pounds for us American folk. And this
is their clutch package. It's for a 1.6, so it is smaller. So we're really just going with something as small and light as possible.
Yeah, and the cool thing about this is if you look at it, so this is the flywheel side, it's full face, and the pressure plate side is 6-puck, so it's kind of like a hybrid. They claim it is as drivable as an OEM clutch, and there's no compromise, which Dylan hated his clutch last year, so hopefully this is a lot easier to drive.
I did.
And this thing is gonna rev like an F1 car, so
oh yeah,
this should be a sick combo.
We're excited. Let's do it. So aside from the Gen V ITB kit, other things that we've done to the engine, first thing I'll call is the AWR motor mouse. Can't see them obviously very easily from this angle, but they really do drop the engine down, what would you say?
It's 0.3 inches. So
0.3 inches?
It's over a quarter inch, which might not seem like much, but when you get your center of mass down lower, everything handles better. So we have 95 durometer in the track car. These are 72, I believe.
Yeah, I got the lowest durometer, meaning the most comfortable.
Compliant. The most compliant.
Most compliant. As they break in and we get this thing tuned and dynoed, I'll let you guys know in a driving impression what I think of them. I'm still trying to use this as a street car, still. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Then also with the engine, we have a vented valve cover going to our very own catch can. Stefan, tell us a little bit about that setup.
So the vented valve cover is just a simple, we have a video on how to do that. It's drilled out for better flow. There's copper scrubbers in there to catch the oil.
If you want us to do that for you,
we do offer that service.
Reach out.
It's actually, there will be a link below because it's on our website.
We've been doing it for a lot of local people.
Yeah.
We can powder coat it for you. You can choose your color, and yeah, we can execute the whole thing. Just send us your valve cover and some cash.
And the catch can, I actually originally designed it for the K-swaps because the intake is on the other side and it's like a cold area. For NA setups or low mount turbos, it works pretty well on a BP, but it's internally baffled, it's vented to the atmosphere, there's a drain, it works BPs, it works with Ks, and it's actually cut out, so if you have the Willwood long brake master, it will clear. Super simple setup, bolts right into factory location.
Nice. There's also a slightly different colored part right next to it that is also our very own part.
It is a brake master brace. They're pretty common in Miatas. The firewall is really flexible. When you push the brake pedal really hard, you can see it move a little bit. So what this does is applies backwards pressure essentially, and really stiffens up the braking feel. And for any like spirited driving, even on the street, it's recommended, and on track it's almost a requirement. It totally changes the feel of the car.
Yeah, a lot easier to modulate the brakes in general, just because you don't have that extra flex. So everything that you're doing with your foot is actually what's happening in that master cylinder.
Yeah. And those are also on our site.
On our site! We have parts on our site and services, so check that out. That's like the best way to support us for sure. Before we get into this large plenum silver monstrosity, which is an amazing fab job by yours truly, which really makes our whole setup go is what's going on right here. Now, a friend of ours, Ryan, we've been following along and pretty much
competing,
blatantly copying him. No, Ryan was the first Miata that I saw. I don't think he's the first person to do it, period.
Yeah, definitely the first one I've seen.
But the first one I've seen to do the half rad. So what we have going on here is a Civic half rad up front, and then you've done an AN line conversion on everything, right?
So,
you just went over the top with this.
So I figure if you're going to do all this work, you can't have like cobbled together rubber lines. So everything is converted to dash 20 AN, which dash 16 would have been fine. Dash 20 is like way overkill and extremely expensive if you're considering this.
And I don't know if it comes through in video. This is massive.
Yeah, like, this
is like a fistful of AN line.
Yeah. And like I think that lower coolant hose, it's like this long and was like $260 in material. So I wouldn't recommend it. Dash 16 is like 60% of the cost.
Yeah.
But it looks really cool, and it's definitely like, it makes it look like nothing was overlooked. So
yeah,
it was worth it. Worth the pain.
And two other things that goes along with that half rad, we're reusing the reroute that I had on my other setup. So it is still pulling coolant off the back of the engine. And we even converted to an NB heater core. So you could do that AN line conversion right from the firewall.
So NB heater cores are aluminum, the pipes are, whereas an NA is brass. So with the aluminum, I could weld two AN fittings to the heater core. I didn't want to leave anything rubber, so that looks cool. It's all little touches. All
yes.
Details, right?
Yes. So let's talk about now the intake. We talked about the ITBs, but what's all this situation over here?
Yeah. So shout out to Ryan for the idea. His is flipped. We'll actually put a picture. We should put a picture up of his because his is sick.
His is really cool, and it is opposite.
Yeah.
We did it a little different. This is really like you and I over a couple beers, over a couple days, like thinking about how to work all this.
We flipped it so that all of the hot stuff is on one side, so you have your heat coming out of the radiator, going past your header, and all that stuff. It's all coordinated to one side of the car, and everything cold is on the other. So there's actually a NASCAR brake cooling duct.
Yes.
Dual 3-inch outputs.
And it's carbon fiber.
Oh yeah.
You can get them on eBay. It sounds super expensive. They're like $60.
Yeah.
Search like NASCAR carbon fiber on eBay. You'll be surprised what you can find.
Yeah, we got the brake ducts for the track car for like $20 a pop.
Yep.
We slipped 2 V-band covers, one on each, or V-band clamps, one on each. And then I built this custom plenum setup.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to connect them, not the only way, the cool way to connect them, was with an unholy amount of pie cuts. This whole jig took like 16 hours to tack together and weld together. Totally worth it.
Now, in order to filter this air out, a lot of people just have the filter that sits here, no ducting to it or anything like that, but that could get hot underneath the engine bay, yada, yada, yada. We want the coldest air possible. So we're trying to pull ambient front air from the front of the car, which is an effort to do this.
Also, filters on the intake are extremely restrictive.
Yes.
You can see them like fluttering back and forth as the air starts to suck. So this combats that. But
yes. We were really trying to come up with a concept on how to make this whole thing work. And I figured out that I actually have a panel filter, a K&N panel filter. It's sitting up here with a magnet, and it slots in. So that's a magnet, and it slots in. It's actually captured on either side. So this actually sits up front. Cold air comes through there, through all the ducting, fabbed by yours truly, and into the plenum.
Yeah. And you can see it's working because the filter's dirty.
Yeah, the filter's filthy. I'll clean this out. It'll be interesting to monitor our intake temperature. We have a sensor there. We'll be able to monitor that and see if this whole crazy Frankenstein idea is working or not.
I think it's the best solution without cutting holes right through the hood.
Also, what's going on up front to duct all that in, Dan from Boffy came through with yet another part that neither of us had any idea about. Daniel Marshall.
You're my hero. You're kidding?
It's this crazy ducting from SPS Motorsports. It's like a really hard plastic, but you can cut it if necessary, and it is now forcing all the air not only to stay in the front, but there's a duct that goes all the way up to the top of the inner portion of the bumper. So all of it's either going into the radiator or into the actual intake. And I think that's really, in the end, what is making this whole front end situation go.
Yeah, it's a truly nice piece, and like it's not like your typical under tray that's super flimsy and wobbly. Like it is a stout piece, and it is really well put together. So
there are a couple other bling things here. Some of the hardware is really like blinged out. We went over the top there. Our top hats, you came up with some crazy cool thing to flex on everyone. I have Olin suspension, and the best we've ever driven, we're not sponsored by them or anything, is Zeta's from Super Miata, the AR Plush. So this was an effort to get as close as we could to those, because the Olins have no extended top hats whatsoever.
So Zeta's have extended top hats and a pillow ball up on top if you get the baller version. Dylan already had the pillow ball, so we just made some extended top hats with some fancy gussets because it was unnecessary. But you have essentially more piston travel before you start to bottom out your damping.
And the last thing, so we actually are changing the ECU from a Mega Squirt to an ME.
ME.442. It's
ME.442?
Motorsport Electronics 442. Same one that Miata Dad runs in his nitrous car.
We'll get a little more into that in the next episode, which really brings us to the end of this one. Because now that the engine is in, you've all seen all the custom bits. In the next episode, we are hopefully going to get this thing started and then dyno it. Stay tuned and follow along. And as always, thanks for watching.
It's blocked off. That's like the option that they fixed.
Really?
It's just something about that, but yeah.
Whatever.
This only goes one way.
Cool.
Ooh, look how nice.